Welcome to Red 5 Standing By. Solo, a Star Wars story, has been out for a week now, and many of you have probably gotten a chance to see it. Now, this won't be a review of the film, as I've already done a non-spoiler review, so go ahead and check out that video to get my thoughts on the movie itself. This goes without saying, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, don't watch this. I mentioned this in my other videos that there were things about the movie that I liked and others that I wish were never included. I hated that some random Imperial officer is responsible for giving Han his last name. Some people had a problem with Bodhi coming up with the Rogue One call sign off the top of his head. That's how I feel about some random Imperial stooge giving Han his last name almost as if it was a joke. There are just some things that don't need to be explained, and Han's name is one of them. I don't think it adds any more depth to the character, and I don't understand why he would keep this last name, especially since it was given to him by the Empire. Had they explored this a bit further, I'd be more open to why they went this route, but it's never brought up again. I feel like The Force Awakens executed this idea far better when Poe gives Finn his name. It was done in a less distracting way, and Finn immediately takes to it, even going as far as bragging about it to Phasma. But as far as Solo goes, it gets no reaction from him, so I feel like this was totally unnecessary. This being an origin story, I fully expected to see the first time Han and Chewie met. I thought the scene worked beautifully. I like that Chewie is seen as a beast to the Imperials and is used as a form of punishment for unruly soldiers. It stays in line with the slave labor backstory we got in Legends, but it's tailored to fit this particular story. The chemistry between Han and Chewie in this scene, and for the whole movie for that matter, worked so well, and it's definitely one of the highlights of the film. Some people might have a problem with Han speaking Shriwook. I understand it's goofy and slightly unnecessary, but I thought it was a fun way to explain to casual fans why Han is able to understand Chewie, and you gotta admit, Alden Ehrenreich growling like a Wookiee is pretty funny. The one thing I was let down by with their dynamic though was the film didn't elaborate on Chewie's life debt with Han. I wanted to learn more about this, especially after reading Life Debt from the Aftermath trilogy. The book implies that the debt is very important to both characters, and the film really doesn't explore it. This was a big missed opportunity to give more layers to these characters and have something with more weight to focus on in the movie. From all the marketing for this film, we knew we were going to get to see the Sabacc game where Han acquires the Falcon, but I love that they pulled a small bait and switch on us. The trailer made it seem like the advertised scene was the game where Han wins, when it actually takes him 2 games to best Lando. I like this because it changes things up for those of us who are familiar with how it went down in Legends. I also like that Lando has to cheat to beat Han the first time. From all the canon material that I've watched and read, Lando is a total con man and swindler, so cheating in a game of Sabacc when his ship is on the line is not out of character for him. I said it in both my initial reaction video and review, my favorite part of the movie is the Kessel Run. This is the part of the film where it felt most like Star Wars to me. The John Williams themes are highlighted in this sequence, and I got chills the moment Chewie takes over as the co-pilot. I mean, it's the first time Han and Chewie are piloting the Falcon together. How do you not get excited for that? But more importantly, this is the part of the film that shows Han isn't afraid to try something that's deemed impossible. Before this, the shortest route was 20 parsecs because it was the safest, and everyone but Han thinks it's a bad idea to try to find a shorter route. Just as this was a movie about Han and Chewie, we also get to learn more about the Millennium Falcon. During the Kessel Run, L3 becomes part of the ship to plot the 12 parsec course that Han takes. As if it wasn't already, this makes the Falcon one of a kind since it contains L3 as its navigation system. I'm not a fan when prequels have an unreasonable amount of references to the original, and to my dismay this movie is full of unwanted references. I didn't need to see Han get his DL-44 or have someone hint at him joining the rebellion. Having the Falcon get trashed during the Kessel Run was a bit much for me. I think it would have added more history to the ship if it would just gotten old and beat up over the years under Han's ownership. As I predicted, the use of parsecs was confirmed as a unit of distance as opposed to time. However, it is unclear on the exact number of parsecs Han did the run. After the heist, Han brags about doing the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Chewie comments and Han jokes about rounding the number down. I like this moment because it's a typical scoundrel move to embellish a story, and we all know that Han likes to talk a big game. These last few things I didn't elaborate on in my other videos because of obvious spoilers, but I found the Beckett portrayal to be way too predictable. If it were anyone besides Beckett, I would have been fine with it. Having the guy telling Han not to trust anyone be the one who double crosses him felt like lazy writing to me. And overall, I found the Beckett character to be pretty forgettable. He was described as a mentor to Han, but he really doesn't have any big influence on him. The one thing I like that involved him was establishing that Han shoots first. I like that this was implied by Beckett reaching for his blaster and Han shooting before he can finish his sentence. I'm just so glad that they didn't have him simply tell him, if I teach you one thing, always shoot first. Then there's Qi'ra. I thought Emilia Clarke did a fine job with the character, but I didn't buy her romance or her chemistry with Han. One of the problems with handling a prequel story is that we know where and with whom certain characters will end up, so I immediately dismissed the possibility of them ending up together because we know he will ultimately end up with Leia. I guess I would have bought into their romance had Han been more affected by her abandoning him at the end of the movie. He spends a few moments sulking about it as he watches her fly off, but then in the very next scene he goes after Lando to win the Falcon from him and then jets off to Tatooine to meet Jabba. But out of everything that happened in the film, the one thing that caught me completely off guard and left me speechless was the Darth Maul cameo. Maul was the last character I expected to see in this movie, and I love that the character was played by Ray Park and voiced by Sam Witwer. I really like this cameo because Maul heading a crime syndicate at this point in the timeline can possibly lead to more canon stories featuring him. I'm so glad they brought him back in Clone Wars and again in Rebels. He was underused in The Phantom Menace and became a very interesting character in the animated shows. But I think the main reason for Maul's cameo was to let casual fans know that he survived being cut in half in The Phantom Menace. If you didn't watch either of the animated shows, you would have no idea that he was alive. However, I think having him appear in this movie opens the door for other canon characters to cross over into the movies. There are a number of characters from the novels that I could see appearing in a movie. Also, the ending to Rebels is almost begging for either Thrawn, Ezra, or even Ahsoka to show up in a film. I would lose my mind if any of those characters, or at the very least someone from the Chiss Ascendancy, is in episode 9, but I think that's just wishful thinking. So those are my thoughts on all the spoilers I can think of for Solo, a Star Wars story, but now I know what you think, so go ahead and talk spoilers in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and share it. I know this is extremely late, but I'm going to be doing a video on Star Wars Last Shot, so be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on that, as well as all the other videos I post on this channel. As always, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you.